Today we are talking about Ancestry's ThruLines and how you can use it for your family history research. Now, since I did a video, I don't know, a couple years ago, there has been some new updates and stuff, and I wanted to make sure that everybody understands exactly what all the little details about ThruLines means and how you can use it. All right, so we're going to get into all of that here in just a moment. But my name is Connie Knox. I am a lifelong genealogist, here to help you go further, faster, and factually with your family history research. Now, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so that you get notified each time I upload a video. There is a newsletter, a website, and a Facebook page. Make sure you're hooked up with all of that. Links for all of that are in the show notes below. All right, so we're going to jump over to the computer and learn a little bit about Ancestry's ThruLines. All right, today we're talking about ThruLines, and really we're going to take a step back and we're just going to briefly explain kind of what ThruLines is and how it works. But really we're going to dive into the software here at Ancestry and see if we can really learn how the little hints that they're providing can help you with your genealogy. So first of all, this is the ThruLines page. You would get there from the DNA tab, and then you would jump down to ThruLines, okay? So we're going to be working on my late husband's family history, and we're going to scroll down, and we're actually going to be working on this William Knox. So there are 56 DNA matches between 8 centimorgans and 3487 centimorgans. We're not going to worry about the centimorgans so much right now. What we're going to really focus on is how this works. Now, before we go on, though, I want to point out a couple things. And this whole episode was really prompted by somebody who was asking, what does the dashed lines mean when you're in ThruLines? And you'll see it in a couple different places on ThruLines. So, for example, here are some dashed lines. And it says potential ancestor. So the dashed lines merely means that they're not in my tree. All of these other people with solid boxes are in my tree. Okay, so they're just making a suggestion as to how these people might fit. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to jump over to the ancestry tree and just kind of give you an explanation of exactly what the heck this is. Okay, so here we're in the family tree, and this is William Knox, the ancestor that we're kind of working on, that we're kind of focused on, okay? And so when we're thinking about ThruLines, now this has nothing to do with ThruLines right here. This is the actual traditional genealogy tree that I have created over the years. And so while this doesn't really show you any specific ThruLines icons on the screen, it is because my DNA is not attached to this part of the tree. So just for an example, I'm going to jump over to my tree, and here you can see where the little icon right here, where it is showing a ThruLines icon. If I click on that, you'll see the ThruLines, and then I could actually go straight to the ThruLines from this ancestor, from my traditional family tree on Ancestry. So we could jump straight to it. All right, so we don't need to discuss my tree anymore because we're working on the Knox line, which is back over here. So we're going to work on the William Knox descendants. Now, what is ThruLines? ThruLines is taking all of the DNA cousin matches, right? You have DNA cousin matches in a list on the DNA side. And again, if you were to get to the DNA cousin matches, that would be right here from the DNA tab, DNA cousin matches. And it might look something like this, okay? And in some cases, you're going to see common ancestors. Well, in ThruLines, we're going to use this couple as the common ancestors for the sake of this example. So I'm going to zoom out. If I zoom out, then you can see that there are a lot of descendants, right? And there are a lot of cousins down here. Well, if some of these people have tested their DNA, then it would show a through line to that common ancestor. I don't know, let's say this person on up to down and through this person. If these people down here had tested their DNA. And I realize that the font is really small, but that for the sake of demonstration, you get the idea. All right, so William Knox is way up the line. Now, a through line could be farther up the tree, right? So if, for example, a distant cousin, there may be 2 more generations up the tree, and that through line would go way out to some other cousins that are way off in the distance. So the through line might be running through William Knox and not necessarily from him as a descendant. It could be coming from his ancestors as well. So it just depends on where William Knox is in the family tree. So for the demonstration purposes, I am now over on ThruLines, and where I have drilled into William Knox. And how you would get to that is you would simply, from the top, right? You're in the ThruLines view, you scroll down until you get to William Knox, and you drill through, and you get this view. Now, I'm purposely not showing the DNA cousin matches at the bottom, but here you can see the dashed lines again. These are people that are not in my tree. And you can see that William Knox was the 3rd great-grandfather of my late husband. Okay, so William Knox is a 3rd great-grandfather. So when we're looking at DNA cousin matches, we refer to my G rule. Let me explain my G rule. Okay, the G rule is this. So the G rule is kind of a quick and dirty way of remembering how your DNA cousin matches might relate to your family tree. So for example, if you have 4th cousins, that means that you have a great-great-great-grandparents in common. You count the G for the grandparents. So it's great-great-great-grandparents. This is in a perfect world, a straight up 4th cousin, not a half 4th cousin or something. It's just gives a rule of thumb of how you can figure out how your 4th cousins that you're seeing in your DNA matches might be related. So the reality is that a 4th cousin would have 3 times great-grandparents in common with you. The trick is to figure out which of the 16 great-great-great-grandparent couples that they descend from. Okay, so if we have those 4th cousins, then we know that William Knox is a 3 times great-grandfather, and we see 4th cousins down here, and we see some DNA connections below that, which probably means they're 4th cousins once removed. I'm not going to get into all of that right now. All I'm saying is that this kind of gives you an example of how William Knox William and his wife are the common ancestral couple of these DNA matches, specifically for the 4th cousins, but also the once removed, twice removed, or whatever underneath that as well. And so, you know, the cool part about ThruLines is you can move this around. We can click through, we can contract this, we can expand this one to find more cousins under there. But keep in mind, there's a couple things going on here. These DNA matches have said that these people are in their tree. And my tree says that these people are in their tree. And these people down here have said that James W. and maybe on farther up the line are in their trees. So Ancestry is merely making a suggestion that this is how this might play out based on multiple people's trees and or the records that match. So if we want to take a look at these dashed lines and go, well, wait a minute, Ida here is not in my tree. And it appears that she might be the daughter of James. Okay. So we can click on this evaluate button and see what kind of records might be available to us. And what we get here is a list of people that are in the view and a lot of trees that are also suggesting that these records and or family trees are showing these same people for Ida M. Knox, okay? Or Ida A.M. Knox. And so this is the genetic connection up here, but here there are no records, which gives me pause. So what I want to do is I want to see the records. So here, if you'll notice, they're in order of who has the most records. Okay, so we can drill in and look at those records in those 11 member trees and then make a decision as to whether Ada is actually a member of the tree of my family tree. So to do that, we could click on the member tree and we could look at the records. This is the first thing I do, is I go straight to the records. Now, Ada here was 1858 to 1918. So I'm going to look at the later record. She should be in the 1910 census. And there is a 1910 census. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to open in a new tab because I don't want to lose where I'm at. And then I'm going to also take a look at the 1910 census. And I'm going to again right click and open in a new tab, the 1880. So at a quick glance, I know that Ada born in 1858. By the time 1878 rolls around, she's probably out and married, I'm guessing. Okay. So more than likely she might be in the 1860 census with her father, James W. Knox. So looking at the 1910 census, we can take a quick look at that. We can look at the 1900 census. We can look at the 1880 census. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to try and find the 1860 census in here, which I don't show. So perhaps there is another piece of evidence that might point to who her parents are. So let me take a quick look and see if I can find that. Okay, so knowing that I'm using part of this ThruLines to help me, you know, as a reminder, we always want to work backwards if we can. Well, I was able to find Ada in the death records of many of her children. So if we take a look at even just Find a Grave, it lists a lot of her family. Taking a look at her death certificate, she dies in 1918, and that matches with the ThruLines where it shows she died in 1918. In her death certificate, it shows that her father's name was William Knox, but the mother is unknown. If we go back and take a look at some other records, this is a death certificate for one of the children, and it names William Harrison and Ada Knox as her parents. So if you think about it, on these death certificates, even though I have not been able to find a marriage certificate for William Harrison and Ada Knox, this is evidence of marriage in itself, or at least evidence of the parents. While it might not prove that they actually married, it does give us an indication that this person is the child of William and Ada. And here is another one, another death certificate for one of the other children where it names William Harrison and Ada Knox. There's a lot of death certificates here that show Ada Knox and William Harrison as the parents. Here's another one that shows William Harrison and Ada Knox as the parents. And so we have a lot of death certificates of the children. So that is helpful in at least being able to determine that Ada Knox and William Knox are the parents of all these children. So again, working backwards, we've got the 1900 census, which we previously talked about, the 1910, the 1880. Here they are married and young, 24 and 25-year-old, right? Here's Ada and her son, Jesse, and child. Okay, so here's another example. So we're going back to 1870 now. Now, in 1870, Ada is here. She's listed as a 15-year-old with her siblings, Adam and Margaret and Betty, living in the household of a family member, which I realize the relationships are not listed here, but after doing some research, I know that this family was Wiley. So you can tell that they have some children listed here, and then the ages start over again. So this gives me the indication that these children are being cared for by William Knox. Well, if we go back another to the 1860s, as I said I wanted to originally find, here's J.W. Knox and wife Peggy with Martha, Ebenezer, Ada, Adam, and Samuel. They match the names, right? Ebenezer, Ada, Adam, and Samuel. Ebenezer, Ada, Adam, and Samuel is not listed here, but we have some consistency in names and rough ages in the 1860 census. So we find Ada here. I love the accent, probably, Ada, in 1860. Now, she's born in 1853. And so that gives me the indication. This says 1858. I believe it's probably 1853. But this does give me the indication that I can now accept Ada into the family with JW, because here's JW, Knox. And I don't know where he is in 1870, because in 1860 he's listed here. 1870, the children are living with a family member. And so I don't know if he has died by now. My records, show that he died in 1877. So he should still be around, but perhaps he and his wife are elsewhere at the time that the census was taken. And so in 1870, the kids are listed with Wiley Knox instead of with their father, James W. Knox. Okay? So getting back to the through lines again, I hope that wasn't too confusing. Getting back to the through lines, I feel like we can accept Ada into the family now. So what we want to do is we want to add to the tree. And it says you've added Ada M. Knox to the family tree. And now you can see it is no longer dashed lines, but solid lines. So that is kind of a long roundabout way of how you can accept them. But what you really want to do is really go through that evaluation process. As you can see, I took a look at a lot of records across the top here, including a lot of the death certificates for some of these children. And remember, all the children are not going to be listed here. Only children who have descendants who have taken a DNA test, and it happens to line up in ThruLines. Now keep in mind that ThruLines is not perfect, because this side over here, which I didn't even open up, is not correct. The people that are lining up here I know to be incorrect. So somebody out there who has family trees have it incorrect. Don't try and fix it. Don't get upset about it. Just use ThruLines as a hint tool to help you evaluate and possibly point you toward some connections. Well, I hope that was helpful. Keep in mind that Ancestry's ThruLines is really just a hint feature, okay? It's not perfect. It's not going to be perfect. And as I said before, don't try to fix it. Just use it as a hint feature. Use all of those evaluate buttons to kind of drill in and see if you can find more. All right, well, there are more videos on the screen for your binge watching pleasure, so I will see you in the next video.